Gyokeres. Because on Viktor Gyokeres, guys, the agent spoke in the recent hours saying he has proof of the agreement with Sporting to let the player go for 60 million euros guaranteed plus 10 in add-ons. So that's the position of the agent. Let's see what's going to happen in this story. We know Gyokeres is not so happy with the Sporting president who said he wants more than this fee to let the player go, so not accepting the pact made by the director Hugo Viana a few months ago. Let's see what happens there. I just want to tell you one thing. Manchester United keep calling for Viktor Gyokeres, so Man United remain there, always informed of the situation. But don't forget Arsenal. Don't forget Arsenal, because Arsenal remain in active contacts for Viktor Gyokeres. Arsenal last week had contacts with Benjamin Sesko, but still no agreement Arsenal-Sesko, no agreement Arsenal-Leipzig. So we are not at a really advanced stage of the negotiation. The conversations took place advancing, but not the negotiations in terms of financial point of view. For Viktor Gyokeres, new contacts are taking place. Arsenal are regaining contact for Viktor Gyokeres, so he remains an option on Arsenal list. He remains a strong option, a player appreciated internally. That's always been the case. We never had to forget about Viktor Gyokeres and Arsenal. But Gyokeres remains in contact with Arsenal, remains a player on Arsenal list, and so remains a case to watch for the next days and weeks as soon as his exit will be clarified by Sporting. So let's follow the situation for Viktor Gyokeres, because I think with Arsenal could be still a story to follow in this summer transfer window, waiting to understand what they will do with the striker.
Flying around on the outside. And I always think, tactically, it kind of just is another strand, isn't it, to the way that you play the game. But there really probably wasn't any justification in giving him a new deal, given the injury issues that he's had, right?
Yeah, 100%. I did enjoy some of his cameo appearances this season, you know, and there was definitely still a player there. And it's a shame the way his career panned out at Arsenal. But like you said, I think for him as well, moving back up to Scotland, you know, he will play a lot more. And the way that it ended, at least, you know, I actually enjoyed the fact that he did get to make those cameos towards the end of the season. We got to say a proper goodbye. And it is a good character that we've lost.
Yeah, absolutely. What about Jorginho then, chaps? Because, I mean, it felt a natural conclusion, didn't it? He has to go down as a really good signing, though, right? I mean, he was pretty cheap, and he added good value to the squad.
I think that window with Jorginho, Kiwior and Trossard was an underrated window.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
If you think about their value over the last couple of years, it's been really huge.
Yeah.
You know, Jorginho also came in. What I liked about him was I felt, we all know he's a great coach from the substitute bench.
Yeah, he loves it, doesn't he?
He's also a great coach on the pitch.
Yeah.
And you can see that when Odegaard was out, he has almost been a tactical leader on the pitch. And I think Declan needed that in his first season to settle him down.
Yeah.
I think Havertz needed him to get him going when Havertz arrived. And that sort of value to bring those two expensive signings in to help them settle down was really, really good.
Yeah.
Adrian, you know, well as I do, I think physically he dropped away a little bit, you know, and those gaps started to appear. And when you don't play, the physical gap grows.
Yes.
And so it was time. It was time.
Yeah, it was, yeah. I think as well, Rory, that in Rice, in Marino and in Odegaard, we've got more than our fair share of leadership qualities in that part of the pitch. So maybe his influence was not quite as much. Yeah,
we do have a lot of leaders. I think the experience that he had was definitely useful. I think it was the PSG away game where he definitely wasn't fit to play but was on the bench just so that he could coach from the sideline. I think that kind of sums up the role that he probably played this season. And I wish in a way that we'd had him in more of his prime years. Because the relationship and the partnership he had with Rice on the pitch, actually, I think was a really underrated partnership through some of last season. So, I wish him all the best.
What happens with Thomas Partey now then, Rory? Because obviously we're hearing talk that talks are ongoing, that Arsenal actually want him to stay. Because I think there was an assumption among some people that maybe he would move on this summer, but that doesn't seem to be the case. As an Arsenal supporter, do you want him to stay?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one. I think money is going to be one issue. I think he spoke recently about the fact that it's probably his last sort of big deal, and that money is obviously a deciding factor. And for us, I mean, if you lose Jorginho and Partey in the same window, that is a lot of experience to lose from the midfield at one go. I also still think Arteta probably sees him as a third choice right back when we need him. So do you bring in a younger replacement? You know, that's another signing. I think if you do lose him, you do need to bring another body in, and that's more work to do when there are other priorities.
Rory makes a good point about the money, because he's a big earner. We know that. Is he worth the money at the age that he is? We know he's the wrong side of 30 now. I thought he had a pretty good season. I've got to say, I thought actually in the main, he was still very much worth his place in Arsenal's strongest starting 11. There were ups and downs. I think with Thomas Partey, you know within the first 5 or 10 minutes whether he's going to have a good game or not, don't you? Because there's a sharpness element. And when he's on it, there's not many people better, Clive. But if he's not on it, then really he's not justifying the wages that we're paying.
Yeah, you watch him, you can see by how he moves straight away, how he receives the first pass.
Yeah.
If it's smooth, don't worry about him. I think it's going to be interesting because obviously he's on a good wage right now. Yeah. He's had 5 years at the club. His role within the squad is going to be different. So it's not just about accepting maybe less money over a 2-year period. It's about lesser role. Is he prepared for that, given who's coming in? And I think that's what he has to be talking about with his agent right now, and he's trying to get his best deal. If I'm him, I would probably look to go away and play somewhere else. And for Arsenal, tactically, I think we've become, I don't say easy to read, but we all know our pattern. And he's part of that. We all know the Saliba to Partey to Odegaard to Saka. That we can close our eyes and see that happening. Maybe it's time for something else. And we shouldn't be afraid of that change. You know, even though he's had probably his best season since he's been here.
If Partey does go, who have you got your eye on? Is there anyone out there that you think, because he would need replacing? You can't lose Jorginho and Partey and just bring in a Zubimendi, right?
You can't really, unless you were to buy another left-footed defender and say to Miles, you know what, mate, we're going to redefine you as a midfielder, which could happen. Personally, I like Miles where he is. He's basically playing in midfield anyway, you know, so I like the role he has. And I think obviously he's playing for England in that role, and that could cause issues in the World Cup year. So you could go that way. Or for me, I would go for a younger centre midfielder, really. There's a couple out of France that are being mentioned, and I would look towards that. From a club perspective, they probably want to keep Partey because they don't want to outlay a transfer fee. But personally, I think it may be time to renew, and we should be looking to go a little bit younger in that area. And I'm okay with it, right?
Well, Sambi Lokonga didn't work, did it really? He's probably one that's going to be on his way. What are these names? Who are these young names that have been?
There's a guy called Lucien Agame. I don't know why you got me speaking these names, Adrian. So I'm now going to look at the comments afterwards. Clive, you butchered that.
Where do you stand with Zinchenko, Rory? Because I kind of assumed he was leaving, but he's got another year, so you know he could in theory absolutely stay and be a valuable player for us as that cover at left back, and maybe that cover in central midfield, not a replacement for Thomas Partey, of course, but someone who could just come on and help us in that department. I
think it's an interesting one with Zinchenko. I think obviously we know he can play in midfield because he's done it for Ukraine for so long, and I don't know, Arteta never